So this is a little bit of a rubbing plate that sits on top of the banister behind the bollards to, I guess, to ease the chafing of the ropes or the wear and tear on the fairing here. So, when you study photos, you begin to, see more details. And then you realize, well, maybe that would be a nice touch. And of course, in HO scale, you're never sure what's enough. But, the fun part is depending on the area of the model that you want to bring focus to, or that will be subject to greater scrutiny, you can basically add little touches like this. And what I'll do is I'll fold down this. This is 10 thou. I just use a straight edge. Actually, a good way to bend, to crease 10 thou is to lay it underneath a ruler on a piece of sanding block and then hold it down tight, okay, like this. This is not 10 thou, but for the purpose of the video, I'll show you. Hold it down tight so it won't slip on the sandpaper, and then take a number 18 blade and then just like pinch it down and pry it up, and you'll make a nice crease like this. And then once this is glued down, I'll just press that a little bit more down, and it's got a nice, I can weather that nice. That'll be a nice touch for the bollards there. Okay. Okay, I just want to point out the pulleys here for the anchor capstan. It's obviously a modern version, but you can see the cabinet here, and there's a pulley wheel in here, and the chain runs through there. So, you can just use a disc for that if you want, but because I'm at this section now, I'm getting a little bit OCD, I guess, but I want to pay attention and devote some time to these details because it's open deck and it's right where all the features of the barge slip and where all the action will be. So I want to make sure I cover these details as best as I can for 187 scale anyway. So what I decided to do was, like, I had these kicking around, like these are by TC Train Group. They're pulleys, but they're obviously too large. They'd work great for 148 scale though. And what I did with these was I took a tube, and then I basically just glued this onto the end. Just centered it, just eyeballed it onto the end of a capped tube. And then I snipped away, like it would have been laying on here like this. I just snipped that away, okay? And then I just slipped a ring, like I cut a couple of rings, which I'll do on the other side, over top, like that. This is just from tube as well. I use a little piece of tape, Tamiya tape. This is 2 or I think that's 3 mil. I just wrap it around the tube, and it gives me a guide, and I just run my knife, I put a score around it, just roll it, and then I use my razor saw to cut it, and then just rub it on a sanding stick to get them, even. And then once that's done, I take a piece of half round, like 240 by evergreen half round. I just start a small bead there and just let it kick. And then I just pull on this, and I turn it and wrap it, and then glue part of it, just wick in some cement. And then you can see right where the joinery is. What I do is when it's up close like that, is I just nibble that off and then push it down with some cement, and then just stroke it a little bit with some 600 sandpaper, and I get a nice, like this one I probably haven't sanded the joint yet. You can sort of see it right there. Well, all I do is take a bit of sandpaper, 600, and just give it a few rubs, and it disappears. And then what I'll do is I'll use tape here again, probably 3 mil, like whatever size the chain is. This is the chain I'm going to use. So I'll measure that and then add the other ring on the other side and repeat the same process, and I'll have a nice detailed pulley for the anchor capstan, and then I'll build the cabinet sort of around it so that it matches nice, okay? Okay, so I just want to close with showing you how I finished off these bollards, and just to talk about a couple of other details here and show you how I go from, you know, the photograph to a sort of a napkin drawing, a sketch, and then the actual model, okay? So here's one of the photos that I found off of Google Images. I was able to zoom in and without pixelating it too much, and this is what I'm after. Like, I needed to understand what was going on here. I can see the bollards there, I can see the capstan, these right here. You can't see a lot of the detail, and then here you can see this is, it turns out that this is an exhaust stack right here, and I'll point that out as well. Now, I was able to go on to YouTube and find you know, leaving Tilbury, Carrier Princess, and the keyword search, and I actually found video of the carrier being loaded from up here. Like, the person was on had a camera, was, you know, or up here in the window was shooting down, which was really revealing. I was able to see all this in higher detail and from another angle. So what I did basically was I used those photos and video, and you can see that this is the deck now, but before this was built, I sketched this, right? And I just sit down first, I study my photos, and then I say, okay, so I want to just make a note. Like, I don't care about scale here. I just make a note. Okay, there's bollards there, sill not to front, little notes, flared, you know, chain winch, cylinder with wheel, sort of a brake wheel detail. Like, I just make rough notes. Like, I noticed there was an exhaust here with a heat shield on it. Okay, so I got a rough idea what's going on here, and I can make a list of parts that I need to make. And then here's a really, this is, right? So here's my professional drawing, right? Okay, Carrier Princess, anchor pulley. This was the first concept before I even actually did this. I just said, okay, I'm gonna build this. Do this. I recommend that you do this. Don't, like, it doesn't matter if it's a stick man or a silly, you know, rendition of whatever. Just, it gets your mind and your creative juices going. Like, it triggers your mind into, you know, transitioning into the build phase. You get an idea, right? So I basically built the pulleys as I showed, and this was really simple. Like, this is just, you know, I talked about that anchor and that exhaust pipe in a second. So I just draft on, like, I draft on paper first, and then cut it out on paper, then put it up into here to check height. And then when I'm happy with the shape, I redraft it onto a piece of plastic. This is obviously way thicker. This is only 20 thou, I think, and 30 thou. This is 60. So I just draft on there, and then I scribe with my number 11 and snap. And I just basically made 4 of these, and then just framed it up on a piece of wax paper, just one piece at a time, framed it up, and then the holes I pre-drilled and slipped the pulley in, and they're good to go. So they'll go, I'll show you this side, like, one goes here like this, and then this one will go on this side right here, okay? And that's it. Basically. Now, this exhaust I made was just a piece of 40 thou tube, or sorry, rod, and I heated this with a lighter, like a Bic lighter, like slowly, like just back and forth. It took me a couple of tries so it didn't kink really bad, and I was able to bend it and then sand it with a stick, and just any bulging that would occur, I just sanded it away. And then I flush cut the end, like it was about this much longer, and I just flush cut the end, and I drilled out. Basically, I start with a number 11 blade. I've pointed this out, like, here's a trick I never forgot. And I learned this from, I think, Louis Pruneau way back in the 70s. He was a scratch builder. And you use a number 11 blade just to start a hole in the center of the rod. And then you'll have no problem starting to drill slowly. And it'll sort of self-center right inside the material. and you can drill that out. And then I inserted a smaller rod and then just slash cut it, right, on an angle. And then this part here, this heat shield is a larger tube that telescopes over top of this. And I basically just drilled it out to thin it more, but I sliced it in half and then ran a strip inside along the pipe and then just glued the half piece on. And there's my heat shield. And this will go right here. Remember how I talked about skinning? Like this is 3/8 plywood under here, and this is like 60 thou or 40 to 60 thou plastic sheeting here to weld everything. Like everything is welded, like it's really solid. Like the bollards are drilled and welded. All these detail parts is a very sort of one-piece structure now, right? Because it's welded correctly with solvent, not CA. So let me just show you the anchors in closing. Like here's an example, like the anchors I built the same way from sketches, just like I showed you, but I got a drawing off the internet, Google Images. You can see where I cut that out of there, see? I cut the paddles out of just, this is like 20 thou sheet, right? So I believe I have videos on how to build an anchor in the Tug series. It's listed, and I probably will show some of it again depending on the process or chronology of this build on the ferry. So those are done. Here's one of the earlier anchors that I built. You can see you can even build a clevis with a pin if you want. You can build anything with evergreen plastic, and there's a few other details. Okay, so that's the details, making small parts, right? Don't be afraid, make mistakes. I make silly parts all the time. Like I think I had to cut these out probably 3 times. And like the first one I did was sort of silly, and then I sanded it to shape. And then when I built the second set, they were even nicer. And that's the way it is with everybody, right? So if you learn to build like this, take it up, start simple, gain confidence through practice, you'll be set free as a modeler, okay?